The UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in Iran, Dr. Shahid, recently expressed very serious concerns about the worsening human rights situation in Iran. Not only has nothing improved under the presidency of Rouhani, but in the first 3 months of this year, at least 200 people have been executed in Iran. And this is not new. It's over 35 years that Iran's appalling human rights situation has continued, but it has got worse under this supposedly benign president. Now, we all share a commitment to PMOI members who are in Camp Liberty.
I mention the fact that for almost 30 years I have been pursuing and supporting the cause of the PMOI and the NCRI. Over the 3 decades I have seen the evidence of the torture wrought upon innocent people, including amputations, gouging of the eyes, lashings, stoning of women, and the constant bombardment of loudspeaker noise for those people that were in Camp Ashraf. The litany of barbarism by these people goes on and on.
It seems to me that the Iranian people have suffered much sadness over the last 30 or 40 years, from the dark days of the Shah and his secret police to the hopes of the revolution in 1979 and the thwarted dreams that eventually died with the rise of a despotic theocracy. A country where the optimistic words of its new president have to be contrasted with the encouragement to Malachi, a country where the promises of Mr. Rouhani materialise in support for the brutal regime of Assad in Syria, a country which postures about a nuclear deal but whose leader is the former chief nuclear negotiator. He may have bought time, but he needs to understand that only the end of Iran's secret weapons programme will satisfy the West. Buying time isn't solving the problem. Hope can be found in the words of President-elect Mariam Rajavi. Nothing will change so long as freedom of expression and human rights are non-existent, so long as political prisoners and political parties are not free, so long as the regime's intransigent policy in Syria and Iraq remains intact, so long as the regime insists on obtaining nuclear weapons. These are the benchmarks for change.
Light triumphs over darkness. Well, isn't this a time to make a bonfire? A bonfire of theocracy, a bonfire of abuses of human rights, a bonfire of the treatment of women in Iran, a bonfire of the way that religious minorities and political minorities are discriminated against, suffering torture, to make a bonfire of all that is gone in the past, and to give the wonderful people of Iran, this one of the most civilized nations in the world, the freedoms, the human rights to which they aspire.
How ironic it is that Mr. Rouhani has appointed a terrorist to the United Nations. But then Mr. Rouhani's behaviour, the year he was elected, he doubled the rate of executions, and if this year continues as it has begun, this year he will quadruple the rate of executions. Now that is quite horrifying. Isn't it ironic that the people who killed 52 refugees in Camp Ashraf have been rewarded by Mr. Rouhani by being given $195 million worth of weapons against the specific instructions and orders of the United Nations.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are very special people, and all you've ever asked is freedom and justice for your citizens. And I've been involved with your campaign now for a long time, and I and my parliamentary colleagues in the House of Commons and the House of Lords will stand shoulder to shoulder with you in terms of the issues in Camp Ashraf and Camp Liberty.
Thank you.